Hello, everybody. This is the Elevate Football Show. I'm Joshua Drillich, founder and CEO of Elevate Football. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 2026 World Cup, particularly with the hosts United States, Mexico, and Canada. Later, we also will be talking about the ticket pricing for this upcoming World Cup, particularly the ticket pricing in the United States, the primary host of this tournament. So, as we all know, World Cup's coming up this upcoming summer in 2026. USA are hosting along with the co-hosts Mexico and Canada. However, United States are the primary host for this tournament. The question was this is, and this is a question a lot of people have is, are the U.S. actually going to be suitable hosts? Right, right. Especially when we look at the historical context. Right, we have, for reference, we have Copa America. Uh, just last year in 2024, we had the Club World Cup from this past summer in 2025, and there's a lot of criticism and questions that were kind of on the table from these tournaments that us as fans make us question whether United States is going to actually be a suitable host for the big tournament, right? The World Cup, right? Which is far greater than Copa America, far greater than Club World Cup. Right? So let's kind of track back a little bit and actually look at the history of from these past two tournaments, right? What were the positives? What were the criticisms of these tournaments? So that way we can actually get an educated look at what we might expect from this for this World Cup that's coming up soon. Right. So obviously in 2024 we had the Copa America in the U.S. Drew a lot of strong criticism for expensive tickets, empty seats at matches, extreme heat conditions. There were some security and ticketing failures at the final, and many organizational missteps. And there's also a lot of on the pitch flaws as well, such as small pitch dimensions and poor grass. And I think those even no, I don't think those ever utilized. They should try. It was all grass. However, it was temporary, so the grass quality was poor. And again, because they used a lot of the American football stadiums, it led to actually very small field dimensions. Right, so that were kind of the main criticisms with the 2024 Copa America. Um, and pretty much every fan kind of agrees with these sort of criticisms from that tournament. You would think that these criticisms would have been heard by the FA, by the United States, and they would have been approved on the Club World Cup. That did not happen. All right, many of the same problems. Again, slow ticket sales. Um, many cases due to pricing, um, due to heat. Due to the extreme heat, we saw a lot of player fatigue and fixture congestion. Um, the sales I think overall were lacking compared to the Copa America. You watch it on TV, you saw some of those stadiums that are empty, right? Because the truth is, a lot of people don't know when it comes to these smaller clubs, that aren't Real Madrid, that aren't Barcelona. No one cares to watch them. So I know the sales from that tournament definitely suffered. Also, I think the pricing for some of these games was also very high. Um, and yeah, and then on the pitch, a lot of the same problems as well, right? Small pitch dimensions because a lot of times they use NFL stadiums, and again, poor grass quality. So right off the gate, we have in recent history we have a track record with the U.S. hosting major international and global tournaments, and we've seen them the quality of these tournaments has been lackluster. You know Not only from the fan perspective, from the player's perspective as well. With the pitch quality, pitch dimensions. Um, yeah, it's simply put, it's not great, and a lot of fans and players managers as well, a lot of people globally have been raising concerns about you know the execution that the United States has had on past tournaments, leading to a lot of doubts on whether they're actually going to be viable hosts and have a good execution um, on the World Cup, which that's the big one. Um, with U.S. Soccer, and its reputation globally, it's already on the edge. Most people in the world do not like U.S. Soccer at all. They don't like our national team. They don't like how we host these tournaments. A lot of criticism for the Americanization of the Club World Cup. That definitely saw a lot of criticism. Um, and U.S. Soccer is kind of at a point right now where we don't have the respect of the world yet in as far as this game, as far as football. In the world of football, we don't have the respect of the world yet. We're seeing some improvements where we're kind of right at a breaking point where we can maybe break through. But because we're kind of at this point, we have the opportunity to break through and actually do something amazing and earn some of that respect. But it's also a volatile situation because we can easily regress back. And that's why I think the United States being the host of the 2026 World Cup is very, very important, because I think the execution of hosting this World Cup is really going to make or break how U.S. soccer is seen globally, right? Not only the performance of our national team, right, which has been suffering for a long, long time, right? Our national team has to perform well to help put us on the map, and as hosts, we have to have strong execution on actually hosting this tournament as well to garner respect from the world, in the in the world of football, that is. Um, yeah, and these are very big demands, and there's a lot of doubt on whether we can actually pull this off. Because historically we haven't. Again, World Cup, very divisive and mixed views on that. A lot of people say that that tournament just uh, wasn't that well put together of a tournament. Criticisms. Copa America, exact same problems, and when we look at the Copa America and the Club World Cup, there was very little improvement in between. That's why me as a an American and a fan of this game, I have doubts on whether the U.S. can actually pull off hosting this thing, right? Of course, we do have some help from Canada and Mexico as they're going to host some of the games, but most of this tournament still is in the U.S., right? We are still the primary hosts, and yeah, I think it's reasonable. I think anyone who is reasonable would have no questions or doubts on whether the United States and U.S. soccer can actually pull off hosting this tournament and actually produce a national team that can help go out and perform and put the United States on the map on global football. Because right now we're at the edge where we're almost there, but how we as a nation perform and represent ourselves in this tournament, that I feel is going to be the make or break point for our country in world football. Right? If we do not execute, I feel we're gonna take two steps back. But if we can make it work, I think we can make tremendous progress to putting the United States on the map for football and help garnering the respect on a global level. Um, yeah, but again, there's a lot of questions on you know how do we execute, what is going to do. I think some things we need to execute very simply are the pitches got to be better, right? We need to put on quality grass and actually have standard pitch dimensions. I think for the World Cup, they're unlike other these past tournaments. I think the standards for pitch dimensions for World Cup are stricter. So hopefully the United States can actually uphold the proper dimensions. That way we can get proper field dimensions where we can actually see a more proper game instead of having to see these condensed games because the pitches are smaller. All right. So hopefully if the U.S. can actually adhere to the standard pitch dimensions and offer quality grass, I think that's going to go a long way in producing into terms of producing quality games that could be entertaining for the fans. And it's going to be great for the players as well, as they'll be able to play more in their natural elements of having to adjust to a subpar pitch environment. Some other concerns, of course, is the heat. So, right, we've seen this in the Copa America, we've seen this in, um, sorry, the Club World Cup, where the heat and heat exhaustion has been big concerns for these players. This is actually one of the reasons why Qatar, for example, is hosted in the fall and not the summer. Normally, World Cup's hosted in the summer, but it was hosted in the fall. Why? Because of the heat. I believe for the United States, though, it actually is going to be hosted in the summer, like these past tournaments. So heat's also going to be a big, concern, for these players, and as hosts, something that's going, need to be addressed in order to, preserve the health of these players, so we can actually have, a quality game. Yeah. What are the other concerns? Um, yeah, and then I think there's some other concerns as well. Politically, right now America is very politically divided, which is the problem with the political divide in America is it's gives fans, especially foreign fans that are thinking about coming to America to as tourists, to watch this tournament. It gives them a lot of doubts on whether it's even safe. And I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of the politics, but just from a fan and football perspective, the political divide in America is definitely something to be concerned about and consider when in terms of as fans, and whether we as fans should invest into going to these games, right? If you're outside of America, traveling to America and buying these tickets and staying in our hotels and going to these games, the political division, that is a genuine concern. No matter what your political opinions are, right? It's so divided and messed up that, for anyone, no matter your politics, it is a genuine concern. Um, and then not only, political, and that's actually a huge one for a lot of fans, is there's so much like political turmoil and divisiveness. Like, is it even like, right? Is it, and there's a lot of, debate on, this, public safety and in these major cities, and a lot of, I know, division and debate and arguments, and, just, again, just very, very divisive. Um, and yeah, that is a genuine concern for a lot of fans, especially, uh, fans from outside of America that want to come, potentially come into the country, right? And there's also, rumors that certain like nationalities would be banned, right? I mean, if you're watching this, fact check me, but I thought I saw something that the president, Donald Trump, would consider, banning people from Iran from attending the tournament, given the political tensions in the Middle East. So you have concerns like that. I don't think there would be any ban on Germans or the English or South Americans. But it's, again, just the fact that there's so much political turmoil and divisiveness. It is a concern. And another big thing is, look at the economy. Look at the inflation. It's right now. It's the consensus amongst viewers and fans is, heck, these ticket prices are going to be expensive, right? That's what we're all predicting, that these ticket prices are going to be very expensive, not just for foreigners, but for the fans in the host country as well, the Americans. So there's a question on whether this tournament is even going to be affordable to watch, in person. And I think the beautiful thing about having U.S. hosts is for all the American fans. We now, especially for us young fans, in our lifetime, we actually get to host this beautiful tournament and get to see it in person in our country. And that's a very beautiful thing. But the problem is, are we even going to be able to afford it? Right? And that is a genuine concern that a lot of people, have, especially people of my generation who don't have much money. Right? How are we going to afford it? Right? And again, there's no, I believe, yes, as of right now, there's no official confirmation on the exact ticket pricing, right? But if we just look at the past and we look at the current state of the economy, for a lot of us, right, especially me, I would not be surprised if these ticket prices are expensive, that the ticket prices are high, right? That there will be a lot of people that cannot, even in America, cannot afford these ticket prices, let alone people outside of the country that then have to pay for international flights, all sorts of stuff. Um, so that's going to have a massive impact. The actual affordability of watching this tournament. That's going to have a massive impact on the, whether we look when the tournament is over. When we look back and determine hey, was this a good World Cup? The affordability of this tournament will be a massive consideration on whether this World Cup goes down in history as a well executed tournament. Right, right, and if you want to look at some of the the sources behind this. I mean, one, right? I mean, I think we all watched the Copa America last year. We watched the Club World Cup. A lot of these concerns we already know about, um, but we also have a lot of news organizations also covering this well. Guardian, ESPN, Forbes, have come out, and have many articles on the ticket pricing. Of course, a lot of divisiveness on which news sources are legit or not, but so by all means fact check me, do the research yourself. But I think these concerns are pretty well accepted and known, um, amongst fans and fans, players, a lot of people, anyone who's a fan of the game. I think we all pretty much while universally kind of accept these concerns, and we all have these concerns for this upcoming World Cup and for the hosts, particularly the United States. Um, yeah, and so let's go into our secondary topic and let's talk about the actual ticket pricing. All right, because this will probably be one of the most high impact aspects of this tournament is the affordability of watching this tournament live. All right, so especially for all my viewers that are American, the affordability of this tournament is going to be crucial for us. Right? Can we even afford? Right, our nation is hosting this tournament. Can we, as the Americans, right, as fans within the host nation, be able to even afford this tournament? All right, that is definitely a massive concern that a lot of us have. So let's actually dive in and let's cover some information that we already know. Right, um, mind you, a lot of the ticket pricing, there's still a lot of things that aren't confirmed yet. So this is just kind of what we know now. So yeah, so according to FIFA, dynamic pricing starting face value categories reported starts at $60 for group stage, higher caps for final, and phase sales with Visa pre-sales and resale platforms emphasize dynamic pricing increases unpredictability. Um, right, so that some basic information came from FIFA. Again, if that's anything that's incorrect, fact check me, please. Right now, as we know, as far as what we know now currently for the estimated ticket ranges, many analysis and ticket platforms believe that group stage is going to start somewhere in the range of $60 a ticket, up to several hundred. And then premium and final tickets can run into even the thousands. So, and some of these predictions are also coming from resellers. One of them even being SeatGeek. So that's another thing is, it's one thing to have the ticket prices coming from FIFA, but what about the resales, right? And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to buy their tickets off resales. So what are those prices going to look like? Those are probably going to be very expensive, I'd reckon. But even look at the initial FIFA prices. All right, $60 for a group stage. That's not bad. Um, Several hundred. As far as American sports go, that's not really unheard of. The real problem though is when we have the high level games. High level meaning like they're going to draw massive crowds, right? So the Argentina games, the Brazil games, the Spanish games, German, England, United States, right? The top level countries, their games are going to be far more expensive, right? And of course, once we narrow down to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and then of course the final, right? What do those prices look like? Because those could be, uh, according to some of these sources, those will be run into the thousands, which for World Cup it largely unheard of, right? Having tickets that are worth thousands just right off the bat. The reason why the group stages are going to be cheaper, about 60 to 700, is because you're going to have a lot of the low level countries that aren't going to have a whole lot of fans in person. So that for those games, they already know the viewership, both in person and over those watching the broadcast, is going to be lower. So makes sense the prices are. But for these high level games, with all that would have a lot of interest, right? The England games, the Brazil games, Argentina, United States, Germany, right? Those are the games that um odds are going to yield higher prices just because the demand for those games is going to be higher. And so the question is, what are those prices going to look like? And again, given the cost of American sports, with NFL, college, all that, which is already very expensive, um, there's a lot of concern on how expensive are these prices going to be, and we already, like I said, we have some sources that re- predict, and again, this is a prediction, right? We don't fully know for sure, but there's a lot of predictions that these can run up into the thousands, right? Let alone whatever the cost will be for resales, right? And this is also not including travel, which right now I believe is very expensive. Could be wrong, but I know we just had the government shut down, so that's caused a lot of disruption for flights. Honestly, I think we're outside of the government shutdown, so but again, just given just inflation in general, you have airfare that they account for, especially for someone like me in Michigan, where the closest game is in Pennsylvania, right? It's like in Philadelphia. That's the closest one, or I have to go to Canada, right? So airfare is definitely something. Accommodation, food, local transport, right? These are all costs. So even if the ticket prices are maybe only a couple $100s, right? We also have to account for the travel, accommodation, food, right? All these costs when determining the total expenses for fans, both foreign and domestic, for this tournament. So because of that, there's a lot of concerns and questions on just how affordable this tournament is going to be, right? Because again, it's not just the ticket pricing, right? It is everything. It's the travel, right? The airfare for a lot of us, the local transportation, the food, the accommodation, right? Paying for hotels. For internationals, they have to buy international flights. For Americans, even domestic flights for us, a lot of times it can be expensive. These are all costs we're gonna have to consider, and the hosts, right? The U.S. Soccer Federation are gonna have to consider as well for their, right? Because their job should be to serve the fans, right? To not only govern U.S. soccer in the USA, but to also do right by the fans. And if the expenses are going to be high for us fans, that's something they're going to have to consider when they look to actually execute and host this tournament. And right now, there's a lot of concern on the exact pricing for this, right? And a lot of it's outside the tickets, but even the tickets themselves. I mean, 60 to a couple hundred for most Americans, that's normal. For foreigners, that actually could be very expensive. Um, but again, my biggest concern is the high level games, right? The games that you want to watch, right? No one. I'm gonna be brutally honest. If no, there's a lot of small countries that a lot of people here don't care about, right? Um, a lot of us, right? What we care about is the big countries, right? Right, Argentina, Brazil, Germany, England, USA, right? These are the teams we care about, right? If no, no, I'm a Serbian fan as well, but for example, if Serbia made it to the World Cup, for example, or like Lithuania, no one cares about them. I'm gonna be brutally honest. No one cares about them. Some people do, right? There's groups, right? But in general, the majority of people don't care about those nations. Thus, those ticket prices are gonna be cheaper, right? What the majority of people care about is the big nations: Argentina, Brazil, England, Spain, Germany, US, right? Those are the countries that are going to be in the highest demand by fans and thus are going to yield higher ticket prices. And right now, the concern is that these ticket prices are going to be not only in the in the hundreds but the thousands, right? And that's in historically when we look at the various hosts of the World Cup, they have to have a tickets, um, even basic tickets cost hundreds and even thousands. That's unheard of. And that's insanely expensive for the average fan, especially in the current economy in America, where most people a lot of people are even struggling to afford basic necessities. To have $1,000 plus ticket would be insane, right? I mean, few people would be able to afford that, and that is a massive concern when in regards to looking at this tournament and determining, all right, is this tournament actually going to be successful, right? Are we doing the best as a nation and as a host nation to set ourselves up and set this tournament up to yield maximum success, right? Because like I said, how the U.S. executes on this tournament is going to make or break the reputation of America in global soccer for years, for 4 to 8 to 10 plus years, right? How we execute this summer will determine how the world sees U.S. soccer for the near future. That's why it's very important that we execute this as best as we can and do well with execution on this tournament. Because if we fail, right, there could be If we fail, there's going to be a lot of repercussions for U.S. soccer, on a global level. Some fans might not even care about it because a lot of this is just reputation based. But I, as a fan, want the U.S. to be respected globally, as a force in football. Right? I want the U.S. national team to be respected. I want U.S. soccer as a federation to be respected globally. I want our fans to be respected globally, right? So for me, the reputation and respect are very important virtues that I want for U.S. soccer, but I can easily see us losing the opportunity to earn these virtues globally if we fail to execute, not just as a national team, but as a host nation. So, with all that said, for many of us, again, it might be a struggle to afford these tickets for this tournament. So, what is the best way then? So then, here's a question we all have to ask ourselves and help each other out with: what is then our best bet in terms of saving up and affording tickets to this tournament? So maybe you and I can have an opportunity, to go watch our favorite teams, to go watch Argentina, to go watch Messi, Portugal, England, right? How can we afford those sort of tickets? Um, and so here's some tips that I've kind of come up with. Now, fair warning, I'm not a financial advisor. Take this advice at your own risk. Um, but I think these general ideas are pretty evergreen, um, right? They're not really high risk or anything like that. I just say that just to make sure like I'm covering my grounds and I'm not screwing anyone over with financial advice, because I'm not a financial advisor by any means. I'm just a fan, just like you guys. Right? I'm a player. I'm a coach. I'm a fan. Right. Um, right. And some of these things are things I know I'm doing as well myself. So some basic tips. Who knows if they'll work, but some things worth considering. 50-30-20 rule. which is allocate 20% to savings and adjust only if essentials are impacted. Basically, what this idea is, and if you don't know the 50/20 rule, you can also look it up. I don't follow this rule myself, so I don't know much about it. But basically, the idea of the 50/30/20 rule is you take your income and you divide it 50%, 30%, 20%. That way, you're actually building up savings and investments while also covering your costs. And for regard to the World Cup, you would then take a portion of your savings and put it towards investing into the World Cup and getting tickets. Another one would be have dedicate like a dedicated World Cup savings or like a savings bucket or penny bank, whatever you want to call it, where every paycheck, however you're paid, you take a little bit from that paycheck. It could be depending on how much you pay, it could be $50 a month, $200 a month, whatever you can afford. Put it in that bucket, save it up, starting immediately, sooner rather than later, and then hopefully you have a good chunk of money saved up to then put towards buying tickets, accommodation, all that, whatever you need. Um, However, and then another one, and this is the one I actually use, is and this one do be careful of because this involves credit. Use your credit card for everything. But I want to clarify though, if you are not good with credit, right, you have to be very self-aware. And if you know that you struggle with credit and paying off your credit card bill, do not do this. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but this is something that I do, and so far is been working decent for me. Is everything I do, gas, food, um, everything I would spend money on, I always do it through credit card. And before the due date of my credit card bill, I always paid off early. Every single time, I always paid my credit card bill early. Reason why: one, I built a good credit score, which again, when we look at air travel, well, I guess credit score probably wouldn't matter much because credit score is more so for big purchases, but it is a benefit. You build a good credit score when more you use your credit card, as long as you do so wisely. Um, the big thing though is when you have a credit card that's cash back. That's where credit cards can become in handy. Well, I guess credit score does apply because for a lot of us, we might have to use a credit card to afford some of these things. And if you have a better credit score, you can buy, you can get access to, maybe a better credit card, maybe one with better travel benefits, giving you more credit to actually use and for buying your tickets and accommodations and travel. They'll be able, and afford, actually going to this tournament. So I'll take it back. Your credit score definitely, can help you in affording, this World Cup, right? Because it can give you access to better credit cards that might be able to help you in travel benefits and travel cards, all that, whatever. Anyways, the biggest benefit though is if you have a credit card that has cash back, and you use your credit card and you build up that, that cash back, you can then take that money and kind of put it towards, right? Because we all have basic expenses, right? We have insurance payments, we have, our car payments, we have groceries, right? Gas. If we just take these, these common, these expenses that we all know and we all pay for, pay them with credit, we get the cash back. We could put that towards, World Cup tickets, and that we can save up that way. Again, this is only for those who are incredibly disciplined with credit. Like for example, not to build up my own ego, but I'm very disciplined with credit. So for me, this works. If you are not disciplined with credit, or you are hesitant with with using credit, do not use credit. It is safer to avoid credit than to use it if you have any sort of doubt on your ability and self-control and discipline to utilize credit. So again, be very careful with credit because it can be very, very harmful and dangerous. All right. That's why a lot of people, like Dave Ramsey and all that, they say don't use credit, just avoid it altogether. And I say for most people, that's actually very good advice. Don't get yourselves into credit card debt for the World Cup. Do not. Right? Not worth it. But what I am saying is if you are already very self-disciplined and very good on using credit and paying off your credit card bills, then I'm saying if you do happen to have cash back, you can use that cash back rewards towards affording a World Cup ticket. That is what I'm saying. But that is very niche advice. That is something that I personally do, but I'm also very self-aware of myself and my spending habits. Thus, I'm able to do it effectively. If you are not self-aware enough to confidently do this strategy, it's not much of a strategy, but to utilize credit, as far as the for the World Cup, again, do not use credit. At that point, go with the other methods. Go with the 50-30-20 rule. Go with a World Cup savings bucket, right? Use those methods first, right? But if you are someone like me that does use their credit card a lot to build up the savings, then of course you can use those cashback savings towards getting a ticket. I mean that's what what I'm trying to do. Build up the cashback, use that towards airfare or buying the ticket, whatever. Because I already have expenses anyways, card payments, car insurance, all that. So I just buy on credit. I pay the credit card bill early, every month. That way I get no interest. Right, my card utilization rate is low. I get no interest, and I reap all the rewards. But again, I want to emphasize you have to be incredibly disciplined with your credit card to do that. And again, I want to emphasize this as well. I'm not a financial expert. Take all this advice with a grain of salt. Right? If I am wrong, fact check me. And take whatever advice I give, take it with a grain of salt, right? In regard to the financial advice, right? Because I'm not a financial expert, right? And even if I was, take it with a grain of salt. Ultimately, you as individuals know the best way to utilize your money. Only you fully understand your own financial situation and do what's best for your financial situation. That is, in terms of this, financial talk, if there's anything you take from this episode, is only you know what's best for you. All right? These are some tips, but ultimately it is up to you to determine what is best for you. And I'll also say this. Do not buy World Cup, do not invest into the World Cup at the detriment of your own expenses. If you have expenses, if you have a family, car payments, right? Make sure all of that, all the necessities in your life are taken care of first before you buy a World Cup ticket. Watching the World Cup, it's a beautiful thing, but it is a luxury. It's a privilege, all right? We have to make sure the necessities of our life are taken care of first before we put money towards a World Cup ticket. I would hate for anyone to, God forbid, bankrupt themselves because they want to go watch World Cup. No, it's not worth it, right? There's a World Cup every 4 years. You'll have other opportunities to go watch it. Make sure the necessities of your life, your family, your food, housing, car, all that's covered first. And if you cannot afford the World Cup, you simply cannot afford it. And for a lot of us, that will be the reality. And that's just a reality that a lot of us are going to have to accept. And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean we can't make an effort to, as fans, to save up for this tournament. We're just going to have to, be very diligent on how we use our money. For a lot of us, maybe we won't be able to go to Starbucks every day and pay the $8-10 for Starbucks, and we take the Starbucks money and we put it into a savings bucket, and then that's how we afford, right? Stuff like that. But at the end of the day, as individuals, we have to determine what our financial situation is and strategize based off our financial situation. And that's going to be different for anyone. But I still think that this conversation is important because for a lot of us, we are going to have to use financial strategy to afford the World Cup. Especially if there is any truth to some of these big game tickets being thousands of dollars, let alone the resale prices. Some of us are going to have to finance these tickets. So this is a conversation a lot of us are going to have is how do if I want to go watch the World Cup in person, how do I afford it? And that's why this is important. So again, this financial advice, take it with a grain of salt. Not a financial advisor, but these are some of the things that I have learned. These are some things that I am doing personally that I am simply sharing to you guys. Ultimately, you guys have to figure out for yourselves what the best strategy is for you in regards to financing and affording the World Cup. Of course, some of these many of this information regarding the ticket prices are provided not only by FIFA, but we have Guardian, Reuters, SeatGeek, amongst many others. Yep. So of course we have some of these sources. We have CBS, we have Guardian, ESPN, SeatGeek.com, Forbes, and Sports Business Journal. These are just some of the sources used today for the information shared today. Yep, and I think that's about all the time we have for this episode. That's everything I wanted to cover today. So again, to recap, a lot of questions are being asked. A lot of concerns are out there in the wild in regards to the United States and the United States' ability to host this tournament, whether the U.S. are actually going to be suitable hosts for this tournament, and of course the ticket pricing would probably be single greatest concern for a lot of fans and viewers of this tournament, and how we as fans are actually going to be able to afford this tournament. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, this is episode 2 of the Elevate Football Show. I'm Joshua Durelich. All right, take care. Bye, everybody.